Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget. And this is number 157. And we had such an interesting reminder from somebody who we know quite well.
I usually say what number it is.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm just so
I was
overwhelmed,
joking. No,
Adrian,
we have amazing
that apparently last week's
Yeah.
156 meant that it was 3 years, as this
How
person
does it
said.
mean that?
3 times 52 weeks,
Oh,
156.
Right. Yeah,
3
that's clever.
years. That is extraordinary, really. And somebody was saying to me just today, Adrian, that they felt that whereas this is somebody in his 40s who said that whereas he'd always felt he'd missed out on all the changes and the dynamics of the 60s, not that you or I maybe saw all of them, but that he can't think of a period like the last few years where we're challenged all the way round by things. So much change, so much huge things going on, really.
There are some big and bewildering things going
There
on.
are.
It is odd about the 60s. I mean, the only thing I remember, well, I remember a few things, but mainly I remember staying up late in case something happened. That was my memory of the 60s, mainly, but I perhaps missed out on some of the wilder stuff.
Well, something was
I don't know.
supposed to happen at 1 minute after 12. I think
right,
that's
yeah.
what it was. And
So-
also eating so late.
Yes,
that
eating
was-
late, yeah. So what else
Well, this
have we heard
person
from
who
people?
we heard from, who said about that, also referred to what we were talking about the currency of kindness, and saying it seemed to this person that it was often the smallest act that had the most profound impact. And we have had some really lovely emails, haven't we, over this last week, about small acts of kindness.
We have, yeah. There was someone wrote. In fact, I think she's 80. This lady. She said, speaking of kindness, one of the lovely young women who serves at our church coffee morning put her arms around me this morning and said, "Thank you for being my mother's friend." That's all it took to make my day so special. It's the little things that can brighten our lives, showing us a reflection of Jesus, even though the person themselves has no idea what they have done. Yeah.
That's so nice, isn't it? Because that really has to be something any of us can do.
I
It's
think so.
just something small
But actually,
like
we
that.
say that. But I mean, for some people, it would be quite difficult to say very simple things. So
Yeah.
it's good to have a try, though, to have a little practice
Yeah, it
sometimes
is.
and see
It
if you
is.
can.
It is.
Yeah.
Can't go too far wrong, really,
Yeah.
saying thank you for being my mother's friend. And we had another one that was perhaps more complex. It was about maybe the kindness of God. This is somebody in Australia who's talking about his son's wife's parents, who are ministers, and every now and then they have a service that brings together the denominations. And after the service, apparently a lady came up to him and said, "I don't suppose you have a child of Chinese descent?" Well,
Bit of a random question.
it was a random question, and for this guy, who was one of the people who was born in Australia from £10 POMs, we know all about them, the people who were told that, they would be given, it would be £10.
Cost £10 to get to
cost
Australia.
£10,
Yeah.
and said they're very white, so what a strange thing. But what is really strange is that one of the ex-guardian children that he has, who still lives with them, is in fact of Chinese descent. And she just thought, I think he thought, he said, maybe she asks everyone that same question, maybe she's a bit odd. But I don't know, just one of those totally bewildering God moments. Just so nice, you know, to think that on that day, somebody just pointed out to him a little thank you maybe from God for him caring for this child all the way through her life.
It's easy to trivialize these things, but they do bring light into darkness, don't they?
Yes. And relief, as this one.
Somebody else reacted to, we were talking about the man who helped us down in King's Cross in London at the station to get to our hotel, and she says, I think says she, "What a blessing to you was that lovely man who helped you so much in your time of need." Something a bit similar happened to me at Manchester Station on my way home from Scargo, which is where we've worked over the last few years.
And that it's in the middle of the Yorkshire Dales, isn't it? It's
right,
not necessarily the easiest journey for anywhere, really.
So it was just before lockdown when we were all beginning to feel a bit uneasy, and there was a problem with trains going in the Euston direction. And the one for which I had a reservation was cancelled, so there was nothing else on the board, the notice board, and of course I was on my own. I asked a member of staff at the barrier when the next train was likely to arrive. He said, it'll be a long time yet, I should go and get a coffee, which I did and sat on a bench to drink it. And suddenly, the same man came running towards me and said, I'm glad I found you, there's a train about to depart, follow me. And he picked up my case and hurried off with me following behind. And we got to the train, which was about to depart. He got on ahead of me, found me a seat, and got off himself just before it left.
So she was never able to say thank you to him. But that's an example of he might have just hidden and thought, I'm not going anywhere near that lady. I told her wrong about the train, and instead made a tremendous effort, more or less almost throwing her onto the
By contrast, I remember years ago on a station saying to this man, I want the 9:30 down to Polegate. And he said, oh, that's gone. I said, oh, no. And there was a stationary train there, started pulling out. I said, where's that one going? He said, oh, that one's going to Polegate. I said, why didn't you tell me? So he doesn't qualify for the kindness.
No, he doesn't get the kindness badge, does he?
No.
Because the other thing we were talking about, which somebody described really well in an email, was what happens when criticism or when thinking that might be justifiable about where somebody's gone wrong becomes, as this emailer said, a shark fest. And I thought that was really interesting at the time. It's been bothering both of us, hasn't it? What happens how easy it is to get drawn in to being one of the baying crowd. And there were a couple of emails that I found really interesting. I mean, this one was saying that social media has many downsides, and I don't minimize those issues, but the news is challenging about people with power, whether it's age or position, who are in a position to abuse that power and hide the abuse. And this person was saying that social media, and of course newspapers are huge in the news this week, but it opened up and laid bare issues and broken down systems that needed to be addressed, and that's uncomfortable and painful. And I think that's absolutely true. I mean, there's been too many massive things in the past, Jimmy Savile being one of them, Rolf Harris being one of them, and of course people in the Christian world as well, where, you know, their position has kept them safe for far too long because people haven't questioned it. And she finishes by saying Jesus was very aware of systems that were more powerful than the people, and hence his keenness to empower those who were disempowered, and actually disempower those who considered themselves very powerful. Yeah. So it was a two-way thing, really.
And somebody else, and I really loved this message, was that I think Jesus knew very well that we are really bad with handling that, hence the sort of judging other people and all that stuff.
Oh, the plank in your own eye.
Hence the plank in your own eye story. As soon as we know something is sin, we hurl the accusation at someone else. We don't all, but some of us do. And this person says, can I justify not visiting someone in prison because of their sin? And he quotes somebody who is credited with changing love the sinner and hate the sin to love the sinner, hate your own damn sin. And he says that should keep us busy, or she says that should keep us busy.
Since I read that, I've thought that just about is right, isn't it?
Well, it is in some cases,
you can. Well, what I mean is, you can talk about planks, and you can talk about throwing the first stone and all the rest of it. But I thought, love the sinner, hate your own damn sin. Whatever one thinks about the damn bit is.
Well, these mantras are very difficult. They're not true supports. They're false supports, and we really need to talk about things and not trot out these things like that, I think.
Yeah.
So a week of lots of issues of truth because of in the courtroom. We know there's a famous case going on at the moment to do with the media,
with newspapers and media, and
this horrendous attack on a dam in an area. I'm still not sure if it's under Russian control or Ukrainian, but that has left thousands of people homeless and hopeless. And we don't know who
maybe puts the courtroom drama into perspective. On the other hand, damage is damage, isn't it? Hurt and pain are hurt and pain.
But we don't know the truth of it, do we? Who is responsible? We know what both leaders of both countries say, but nobody actually quite knows.
No, they don't.
And thinking about it, I mean, truth is one of those terms, one of those words that we use very easily, especially in the church, I suppose. But it's actually, when I try to think about it, I found it's much more slippery than you might think. And, in a courtroom, I don't know if they still do this, they probably do. Witnesses promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But actually, each of those in normal daily living is quite problematic. I mean, just in a very simple thing. I mean, if someone said to me, "Do you think I'm attractive?" My first thought would not be, if they were very attractive, my first thought would be to tell the truth. If they were not, my first thought would be to not tell them the truth. But I'm not sure that comes under the heading of truth and lives. That comes under the into the area where kindness and truth kind of. And I was thinking about the whole truth and that wonderful sketch where the bridegroom has said at the wedding breakfast.
It's David Mitchell. And,
the other fellow,
Yes.
The bridegroom has said that his wife is the most beautiful person in the world. And David Mitchell is the best man.
No, it's not. It's not David Mitchell. David Mitchell is the husband.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, David Mitchell's the best man. David Mitchell says.
Oh yes. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know about most beautiful in the world, and quite unnecessarily. So I mean, and there are people who are a bit like that, who are kind of sickened with
the need to tell the whole truth.
The whole truth.
Yes.
And I was thinking about confidentiality. I mean, this is an interesting one. I mean, how reliable is any secret any agreement that secrets won't be shared? Now, we have an agreement, don't we, between us that we usually say to people, or almost always say to people, if they want to say something that is confidential, that we will probably talk to each other about it. Because
but then we're very fortunate because we can trust each other.
That's right.
There is a massive survey. Now, I'll have to check it out because I only heard it on the radio today, that there's this massive survey looking at how much people trust each other. And apparently there is much more trust, especially among the older generations in this country, than there was 10 years ago. And this is a very reliable survey. I shall have a look at it for next week. But I thought that's lovely. And that probably, we talk about these 3 years, that probably came out of the COVID period where people needed each other, relied on each other much more. And the person who lived next door to you was no longer such a stranger. And that for some people, maybe that's held.
Something grew out of that.
They were saying that doesn't apply so much to the young who are worried about absolutely everything. But it's interesting, isn't it?
I was also, we've often, we did a whole weekend on time, didn't we? And we went through all the things like wasting time, all the phrases included. There was loads of them. And truth is a bit the same. And there are some interesting ones, like we say, if the truth be told. That's a very odd use of words.
It is, isn't it? I'd never thought of that
Because what it seems to mean is that we all know the lies we tell. We all know what we pretend about this. But if the truth be told, and then you would come out with something which we know, but we don't reveal and we don't talk about it. So it's a kind of revelation of a feeling that we actually can't function properly if truth is always used, or is a constant, or is it? I don't know.
It's quite a challenge. I was thinking as well, if you've lived maybe all your life with what to you is the truth, how open are we to change? How open are we to think, maybe I got it wrong? Because we've built it in us that it is the truth. It's our truth. And we hear a lot about our truth, don't we? But sometimes it's been drummed into us. I mean, this week, we're looking at the fact that newspapers have created an image of somebody, maybe, that has been very hurtful. I mean, it's a huge thing. But when you think about any of us, what is drummed into us from the teachers, from your family, from this emotional connection to my truth is going to be very hard to let go of, I thought, really. And I was thinking of a really silly one, Adrian. Because I was born on Christmas Day, I had an official birthday, as you know, when I was a little girl. And
I know someone else who was born on Christmas Day.
It was on June the 6th, right? Yeah, I don't think Jesus had an official birthday. But anyway, I did, because my mother wanted me to be able to have a party and have my friends. So she chose my christening day. And all my childhood, I was proud of the fact that I had this special birthday on my christening day. Right. It's only when my mum died and I was looking through all her papers, I found that wasn't my christening day at all. My mother had got it wrong, and it was actually another day. It was June the whatever it was that was my christening day. Right. And I mean, that's a silly example, because it was very easy to laugh about that and for that not to be difficult to get rid of. But some things are really difficult. If you've trusted somebody, if you've believed something about yourself, it's not easy, is it?
No, it's certainly not easy. I was thinking also about people who, I find it very difficult when people say to me, I speak as I find. I don't hold back. Other people might, but I don't do that. People who call a spade a spade.
That's right.
But it sounds like a virtue, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, if you're a blunt instrument holder, calling a spade sounds like sort of whacking somebody over the head, really.
Okay, so what about Christians then? I mean, testimonies for those who are not used to this. This is people talking about what's happened to them in their Christian lives. Probably other religions have them, but in the Christian world, they're a time when you let other people know what God has done for you. That's really or what has happened to you. And there always has been a bit of a fear around that if you're negative in your testimony, you fail to give God a good reference. And
I remember, Adrian, you telling me that you were in this meeting and it was quite early in the morning and there was a big circle of you and you all had to go round and say what God had done for you that day.
Well, he actually said, I want each of you to say, I can't remember if it was 15 or less. No, something like that. Things that God has done for you since breakfast. And I was last in the circle, unfortunately, so all the best ones are gone. I mean, God really, I saw the sun come up and thought, oh, wonderful, and I thought, I'll be praising God. I mean, and I just don't remember what I said in the end. I think I said I enjoyed my bacon very much, something like that.
Well, at least everybody would agree with you, so that might have been all right.
But I've been very impressed by some mild testimonies, though they're only mild because they sound that. And forgive me those who've heard this before, but there was a bishop at a big meeting I was at, and the person running it called him up on stage and asked with one of those come hither voices that I find so difficult, said, just tell us, Bishop, just share with everybody what, being a Christian, how that affects your life. And he thought about this for a couple of moments, this fella, and he said, well, it makes me want to get up in the morning. Now, it sounds a bit pale, that, but this was a men's meeting. There were lots of men there, 200 or 300 men, I guess. And actually what he was saying was that he had a reason to be alive, that when he woke up in the morning, he didn't exactly have a plan in his head, but he had an emotional, spiritual plan in his head. For a lot of people there, that would have meant a great deal, I think. And people probably remember the cleaner in South Africa we met, who asked how Christianity affected her, said, I clean behind the furniture now, which was
but
amazing.
You have
thing.
Remembered that.
Yeah, I've remembered it
that
always.
For years and years and years. And so she would have had no idea whatsoever of the impact of saying that.
No, she just
and
answered
it's
it.
another example
Absolutely
of somebody
honestly.
you're very unlikely to meet again. Well, I wouldn't have thought so, but maybe you will in heaven, and you'll say, "I know you.
Yes,
You're
that's
the
right.
lady." And she will not believe that what she said in passing, a truth, it was a real truth, could have that impact on you in the same way. I remember trying to, I don't know, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I remember feeling that, people say, where did your Christian life really take off? And it was so flimsy for me. It was being utterly depressed up on the top of Cheddar Gorge, lying there in the grass, not wanting to go back to university, not, terrified of God, and looking at these minute wildflowers lying there, and at this speedwell, and seeing the back of it, and seeing how extraordinarily beautiful the back of that minute flower was. Well, I wouldn't necessarily want to stand up in front of a big
No,
meeting
you'll have to
and
do
say,
better than that in your testimony.
But it is true.
Oh,
It was the beginning of allowing the glory of God.
A lot of people would totally understand.
Well, of course they
this
would.
is the thing that is important, isn't it? That when you do talk honestly, it isn't just you that is freed, it's other people.
Yeah.
Because they suddenly realise it's okay to be who they are and to talk. And I wonder whether, in fact, reality, I gather reality can be translated as equally effectively as truth, and the truth will set you. Jesus said the truth will set us free. And I was asking myself, free from what? So perhaps free from creating a very ponderous and awkward fiction about the thing we call faith, and following the person instead of this elusive notion or concept about truth.
Well, that keeps you safe, doesn't it? It kept David safe on the mountains, staying very safe, close to God. And I think you would say that it's probably kept you safe, and I think it's probably kept me safe. And I know many, many people who would say the same, that, just trying to stay close to Jesus, to who he was, what he stood for, what he cared about, will keep us safe and prevent us from becoming part of any shark fest, or actually falling into a swamp of license, just sort of getting lost.
And if I can say one last thing, is if when people ask me or you or others about what has happened to them, if it's humanly possible, answer like a human being. Find words that make it possible for people to know what on earth you're talking about, because it makes such a difference. So, yes, there we are, the truth. I don't think we've got very far with understanding totally what truth is all about, but
it'd be lovely to hear what other people think.
Yeah, let us know. And thank you for all these emails and
They've been so
contacts.
interesting.
Thank you.